You are Locked On Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Braves POSTCAST, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Grant McAuley, Jake Mastroianni with you after a 2-0 win for the Braves over the Chicago Cubs as they open up a homestand proper. They stopped over last week for a couple of games, won both of those. The Braves keep their winning ways alive at Truist Park in recent memory, and it comes after what was kind of an up-and-down weekend, but a series win nonetheless in New York, and the Braves seem to be at least finding ways to win on a regular basis again, even if the offense hasn't necessarily showed up in mass just yet. We'll talk a little bit about the key hits that were in this game, but more so, some more great pitching for the Atlanta Braves and their 2-0 win over the Chicago Cubs to open up this 3-game series. Before we get started, hit that thumbs up and subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube. Also, subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. Jake, it was once again great pitching, both from the rotation and from the bullpen, some timely hits, and just enough runs to win a baseball game. And they did so without too much fuss, if you will. And I think that the Braves will take one of those nicer, easier versions of a win, even though maybe they left a few runners out on the base paths, some missed opportunities to pile up a few more runs. But 2 will do, as the case will be.
Yeah, it wasn't a blowout, certainly, but it didn't feel like there was a ton of drama either. Maybe at least a little bit until the 9th inning there, but otherwise, a pretty stress-free game. Even though it was just 2-0, it kind of felt like the lead was bigger than that at times because the Braves had so many chances, like we talked about. But you'll take the wins, and especially at home, you get after a late night Sunday night playing Sunday night baseball and a tough loss, you come back home, you get a win to start out a series in a homestand.
Yeah, their Sunday was a little bit different than it would have been had they played at, say, 1:30, because they didn't get home till nearly 4 in the morning. So that will make it a little bit late arriving crowd the next day, as the Braves did not take batting practice before the game, did what they call the show and go, and it netted them a win. But I would also say that the pitching was a large part of what netted the Braves this win. Another night in which it's just center stage for this rotation of late. Reynaldo Lopez, 5 scoreless innings. Did have to deal with some back tightness. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. Not believed to be a serious thing. Bullpen followed with 4 scoreless innings. I don't know if we can really come up with too many more superlatives or adjectives to describe it, but the Braves pitching staff right now, Jake, I would call it the driving force of Atlanta's success so far in 2024.
Yeah, that's what I would call it. That's what I called it on Monday's podcast. It looks like things are changing. It's a changing of the guard. This is no longer the best offense in baseball. The offense is no longer what's carrying this team. It has been the pitching. And look, we all believe that's probably going to change at some point, at least offense kind of getting on track. But if this pitching remains like it is and that offense gets going like we expect it to, I mean, this starts to look like the best team in all of baseball again. And there's, even with all of that, they still have been one of the best teams in all of baseball. But a big part of that over the last 3 or 4 weeks has been this pitching staff, which has just been absolutely dominant. And, a lot of that done by Reynaldo Lopez, but Chris Sale's been really good. Charlie Morton obviously has looked fantastic. Max Fried, was flirting with a no-hitter almost every time he goes out there. And, Bryce Elder did what he needed to do on Sunday to give the Braves a chance to win. So, again, shaky early on with the slow start from Max Fried. Spencer Strider, injury obviously hurts, kind of threw off the rotation there for a little while, but things have really been on track here for, again, going on a month now. This is like one of the better rotations in baseball.
It has been, and it's crazy to think that they're doing all of this, obviously, without Spencer Strider. I know we kind of, put that caveat on it every single time. It shouldn't surprise us, though, that a guy like Max Fried figured out his early season struggles, or that a guy like Chris Sale, when healthy, is pitching like Chris Sale, and we'll see that again very soon. Charlie Morton has found a way to kind of go through some of the highs and lows, and more times than not be a productive member of this rotation. And all of a sudden, this Reynaldo Lopez guy, who most folks were kind of looking at it in spring training thinking, okay, I thought this was going to be another big bullpen arm, but he's going to be the 5th starter. Now, all of a sudden, he is the 4th starter, and as the case may be, Jake, and again, we saw it today, he has been more than up to the job of jumping back in rotation and handling his business. And again, as I mentioned, Brian Snitker talking about it after the game, he left early after just the 5 innings in tonight's contest thanks to some back soreness, but either way, maybe his back has been sore from helping carry this Braves rotation because he's done a great job.
He has, and even when the rotation was struggling early on, he was out there putting up zeros every time he went out, and he's continued to do that all year long. So It's just been incredible to see what he's done. I mean, there were certainly questions about him coming into the year, and rightfully so, because it's a guy who was, let's call it what it is. He was a failed starter. I mean, he had one decent year with the White Sox there in 2018, but then couldn't stick in the rotation, finally moved to the bullpen, where his career then took off against in a good way. And then the Braves decided to see if that translated to the rotation. And again, wasn't sure about that coming into spring training. Right. He had to battle for that spot. He won it, and he has ran with it so far to begin this season. And hate that he had the back tightness, but, the Braves are going to have to look for ways to limit him throughout the season anyway, just because he is going from a bullpen spot to a starter. So I had to find ways to kind of limit his innings, but certainly while he's out there, he has been not just one of the best starters for the Braves. He's been one of the best starters in all of baseball, lowering that ERA in this outing again. So again, it's just been amazing to watch what he's been able to do. Only 71 pitches in this one. I mean, this was a start where if he felt better, as Snicker said after the game, I mean, he's looking to go in 7-8 innings if he was able to.
Yeah, I think that would have been the case. But as you pointed out, there are kind of ways that you can maybe build in a little bit of rest, or at least not overtax this guy, especially early on in the season, because you are going to want to keep him fresh after being used to throwing that 60 to 70 innings, which is a pretty normal workload for a reliever. All of a sudden in the rotation, especially when you move out of the fifth spot, they're going to be asking you for 140, 150, maybe more. We'll see how that whole thing plays out. I know the Braves aren't big on just innings caps and limits and shutting guys down and all of those things, but you want to be smart about how you deploy this guy. In addition to what was going on the mound, there was just enough offense on this night, and it happened with the fill-in for a guy that the Braves I don't think can really afford to be without for very long. That, of course, is Austin Riley. We'll get into a little bit more of the update on him, but out of the lineup on Monday, Zack Short gets the opportunity. All he does is break the scoreless tie, score the second run of the game, and find himself just in the middle of the one key rally that the Braves had to win this game by a 2-0 score.
He did. Also had a big play. And again, there weren't a lot of jams in this one, but helped Ronaldo Lopez get out of that fifth inning with a good play at third base. And then, as you said, delivered a 2-out RBI after Travis d'Arnaud got on with a double and giving the Braves a 1-0 lead, which ended up being all they needed. Acuna knocked a short in to get things done. But, I mean, this guy comes in, filling in for Austin Riley. He walks twice on Sunday night when he comes in. He gets another walk tonight and then gets the RBI hit there to get the Braves on the board, a double. So, just incredible job by Zack Short. Who knows? Obviously, it's still kind of up in the air how long Austin Riley is going to be out. But, until he actually goes on the IL, I feel like this is going to be his job. Now, if Riley were to go on the IL, you could speculate maybe David Fletcher gets an opportunity. But Zack Short certainly making the most of it so far, filling in for Austin Riley.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Austin Riley. I think some encouraging news after the game in the form of the MRI results. But again, at the very least right now, it's a day-to-day thing. It's the way the Braves are dealing with it. And today was a day in which they did not have Austin Riley, and Zack Short stepped up big time. You mentioned Ronald Acuna Jr. added that RBI to bring Short home with that all too valuable insurance run. You always like to have at least one of those, maybe more. We'll see if the Braves offense can start doing that a little bit more. Ronaldo Lopez covering those first 5 innings on 71 pitches. Then Ray Kerr, who I'm definitely going to get into as we continue on. Dylan Lee and AJ Minter, just a trove of left-handers coming out of the bullpen. Not particularly surprised, am I, that AJ Minter got another opportunity to close despite Sunday's loss. They're not going to stay away from him in leverage situations, including the 9th inning, and nor should they. I know there have been some struggles there, but it's also, I think, served the dual role of you wanted to give maybe a little bit of extra time to Joe Jimenez and to Raisel Iglesias, particularly keeping in mind with how busy the Braves are about to be over the next nearly 3 weeks with only one off day over that course of time. And that's going to come on Thursday. Then they're going to embark on, I think it's a 13-game stretch with no off days. So you just have to figure out ways, I think, Jake, to mix and match these guys. And Ray Kerr and Dylan Lee with some big innings and AJ Minter getting back on the horse. Those were all good things for the Braves bullpen today.
And they played so many close games recently that you've had to really rely on this bullpen to pitch in a lot of key spots. But you're right. Not surprised Snicker went back to him. I mean, Snicker is out of that Bobby Cox mold. He is as loyal as can be to his players, and he's going to throw you right back out there even after you've blown 2 save opportunities with walk-off home runs in the past week or so, or a couple of weeks. But AJ Minter goes back out there, gets himself in a little bit of trouble, huge double play ball to escape that inning, and got a fly out as well to end the game. So good to see that. Look, Minter, he's been fantastic. We know as a setup guy, there has been a little bit of troubles with him trying to close out games, but I mean, he has still been I think, the best reliever for the Braves over the last several years.
Yeah, and nobody's making the case that he should take over the closing duties. Right. But on the flip side of that coin, as far as like absolutes are concerned, you can't rule out the possibility of needing him on a day in which you don't have the guy who's supposed to do the closing. And we should also keep in mind, and maybe by Friday, this will be something that kind of works itself out as well. You'll get Pierce Johnson back in this mix. That's a guy that could close for you as well when Raisel Iglesias isn't available. But be that as it may, it all worked out tonight. A.J. Minter did bounce back. I do think it's great to do that inside of 24 hours if possible, and he was able to get that done. Meanwhile, we will continue on and break down this game from the pitching performances to the key runs, and update on one of the Braves' key players as well. All of that is coming your way right here on the Braves Postcast. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius will help you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through that process. It's easy to compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. You'll also find thousands of five-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs as well. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head over to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. Click that link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. Well, Jake, let's get inside the line score and the box score of this 2-0 win for the Braves over the Chicago Cubs to open up this 3-game series as the Braves begin a homestand against the Cubs and later on the Padres. Reynaldo Lopez was on the mound for this one. He covered the first 5 innings as the Braves enjoyed their 5th shutout of the season. Cubs had just 5 hits, no errors for them. Braves with 2 runs on 10 hits, no errors. Left quite a few folks out on the bases, though, did the Braves. 10 total left on base. The Cubs, meanwhile, they left 6. The loser is Wisniewski. He is now 2-2 on the year, and the winning pitcher in relief is Ray Kerr. And I want to get to him in just a moment. Save goes to A.J. Minter, his first of the year, and we'll talk more about that as well. Let's go ahead and get into it a little bit with Reynaldo Lopez. I know we talked about him some here to open up the show, but this has been the carrying force for the Braves here lately. It's been what the starting pitching staff has done over the last 26 games now, a sub-3 ERA for the Braves as a pitching staff. The starting rotation, meanwhile, has an ERA of, I believe, 175, if I'm not mistaken, over that same stretch. Tremendous work is being done by this rotation, and it's not surprising to see that Reynaldo Lopez is right in the middle of it, considering everything that we've seen from him over the first 6 weeks of the season. And again tonight, and as we talked about, he might have gotten a couple of more innings had his back not tightened up.
Yeah, I think he certainly would have with the way that he was going. Just 71 pitches to get through 5 innings. As I mentioned, not a lot of stress there. Only time he really had some, walked a couple batters, which maybe was due to that back tightening up on him. Kind of lost location there for a little bit, but the good play by Zack Short to get out of that inning. It's really still just fastball slider. Now, he did mix in 7 curveballs in this one. I wouldn't necessarily say they were highly effective. Did get a couple of called strikes, but no swings and misses on it. But that slider, 8 whiffs on 15 swings against it. It is just such a good pitch, and he's locating it pretty much in the same spot, which is where you want it every time, down and away. Mm-hmm. And he's just so consistent with that pitch. And what I've been impressed with about with the fastball, the 4-seamer, is that he's reaching back and getting 98 when he needs it. It's not max effort every time. It's averaging 95. But, 4th, 5th, 6th inning, he's in a jam, whatever it may be. He can reach back and get a little extra, something that he's talked about, not just coming out throwing hard, max velocity every pitch. And I certainly think that's helping with command, but it's there when he needs it. And I think that's so important for Reynaldo Lopez. I honestly think that's probably the way more pitchers need to pitch going forward, but that's a whole different discussion. But certainly for Reynaldo Lopez, he has made that work, and it's been very good for him. A 39% called strike plus whip percentage on just 71 pitches. That is an incredible number for him. Very efficient, like I said, throwing strikes, getting those swings and misses. Just another outstanding outing from him.
Yeah, just more of the same from Reynaldo Lopez. I know you mentioned to me he was a failed starter early in his career, but he's finding new life with this second opportunity to get back in there, as most relievers, I guess, by definition, are probably failed starters at some point, but that's also another discussion for another time. Somebody we saw who is not a failed reliever, I will say, is Ray Kerr. 2 innings, scoreless ball, 3 punch-outs for him. We saw his big fastball, great curveball as well. This is a fun story. They told it again on the broadcast of kind of his, circuitous route to finding himself in a professional baseball. He was not a highly touted prospect. It was kind of a second chance opportunity. And as the case may be, Jake, when the Braves were going out looking for quality bullpen options, they identified Ray Kerr, the big strikeout stuff that he has. They were impressed by him in spring training. I talked to him about a week ago, and he said, look, I wanted to go down to Gwinnett, do all my work, and let them know that I am ready whenever that call comes. He was surprised it was this early in the year, but was excited to make the most of this opportunity. And I would say through his first couple of appearances, Ray Kerr has made a very nice impression on the Braves as he looks to maybe campaign for some more work as the season goes along, because if he keeps doing this, he may find his way into that mix.
Yeah, he's going to have to, especially, you're going to have times like this throughout the year with the bullpen, guys nicked up here and there, guys who need the days off. And so you're going to need people like Ray Kerr to step up. The Braves took on a pretty good bit of money to get him, taking on Matt Carpenter, and it was kind of a move that surprised a lot of people. But, it gives you another reliever who has had the one option left. So you could, use him like they have so far this year, send him down and call him up when you need him. But obviously the Braves saw some big time stuff from him that thought he could be a piece in the future. And again, it is early on, but he has certainly shown that tonight. 5 whiffs on 11 swings in 2 innings. He was just really, really good. And again, with guys down, essentially Jimenez and Iglesias weren't available again. Pierce Johnson's out. You need guys like this that are going to step up, and Snitker needs to be able to trust those 6th, 7th, 8th guys in the bullpen at times to hold on to these leads. Because as we've talked about, the offense isn't blowing anybody out right now. They're playing in a lot of close games, and you're going to need those guys at the back of the bullpen to come in and give you some big innings. You got that from Ray Kerr. You got it from Dylan Lee on this night as well. And so that just, speaks, I think, to the depth of this bullpen that we all knew was very deep coming into the year. And it speaks again to the front office and Alex Anthopoulos just continuing to add to that depth, knowing you're going to need it throughout the season.
Yeah, and they have needed it, and they know that as the case is every year, they're going to use even more of it as the season goes along, most definitely. We've seen Jesse Chavez get some important innings. On top of that, Jackson Stevens is kind of serving in that use him if you need him, long relief kind of role, but everybody knows their role. That's something I talked to Jesse Chavez about today before the game is everybody knows what they're supposed to do. They also understand there's some nights, hey, we got to step up and do something else. We've got to get these outs because not everybody can pitch every night. That's just not the practical way to utilize your relievers. And I do think the Braves have built enough depth where they can go without a pitcher or two in the bullpen or stay away from them anyway and still get the results they need to. And Monday was a nice example of that. The Braves wanted some relievers to get an extra day. Talked about that a little bit going up, and that's what Brian Snitker, or coming up, I should say, that's what Brian Snitker talked about after the game and the reasoning for staying away from Raisel Iglesias and from Joe Jimenez. On the offensive side, we talked about Zack Short, and that's kind of the long and short of the Braves offense on this night. There were, though, some frustrations for Ronald Acuna Jr. on the base paths. Picked off twice on Sunday. That doesn't happen very often in baseball to anyone, let alone a guy with the kind of stolen base credentials of Ronald Acuna Jr. It happened again on Monday night, and I would have to imagine that Ronald's going to do some adjusting to make sure that this does not become a habit, because the last couple of days, I think, has been frustrating for him, I'm sure for the Braves, and obviously for Braves fans who would love to see him doing the other thing when he's out there on the base paths.
Yeah, and Ozzie gets picked off in this one too, so I don't know what's going on, but either way, it's frustrating. You have to wonder, maybe are the Braves trying to press a little bit on offense, knowing that they haven't been able to score as many runs as they're used to, so maybe trying to do a little bit too much. Whatever the case may be, got to figure it out quick, because as Snitker himself said after the game, the offense is not producing at a point right now where you can give up outs on the base pass. Yep. And I know we talk about it on here a lot. You never want to take away Ronald's aggressiveness, but certainly, you can't keep killing rallies like this, because you can't always imagine that things are going to play out the way they do, but he probably scores that inning if he doesn't get picked off there. If things play out the same way, similar for Ozzie later in the game, he probably at least is at third base with one out if he doesn't get picked off there again, if everything remains the same afterwards. So again, it's just, I understand just because of where the offense is, they're not putting up 6, 7, 8 runs a night like we're used to seeing. So you're trying maybe to force the envelope a little bit, but got to just stay within your game. Do what's made you so great. This offense is going to turn around. We know that. And look, on this night, you got 7 hits and 3 walks off Shota Imanaga, who's been one of the best pitchers in all of baseball this year. I mean, that is a lot of base runners, but you just weren't able to push anything across. And I think that's not great, obviously, but I think it also shows some signs that maybe there is some life from this offense. Everybody had a hit except for Orlando Arcia. So, I mean, they are starting to get on base. They're starting to rack up hits, double-digit hits tonight. We haven't seen that a lot here in recent weeks. So, I think there are some good signs. It's just you can't try to do too much. You got to trust that this offense is going to break out and do their thing.
Yeah, and we hadn't even really talked about Imanaga that much, but he was able to work around a lot of traffic on the base paths. I would say more than just about any start that he's had thus far, and he has been brilliant for the Cubs since coming over from Japan. 7 hits, 3 walks in his shutout innings, 5 shutout innings, I should say, with 8 strikeouts. So he was able to get some swing and miss when he needed to, and a lot of the Braves rallies started with 2 outs, and that has been kind of a trend of late, it feels like, as well, is just 2 outs, nobody on, then we got a hit, a walk, and all of a sudden you're trying to score with 2 outs. And unless Marcell Ozuna's up there, it just seems like it's a little bit more difficult for some of the other Braves hitters these days. And speaking of one Braves hitter who was not able to help out in this game, Austin Riley out of the lineup, got some imaging done on Monday afternoon. That MRI came back just showing some some inflammation in his side. It is the normal size. It is not inflated, I can assure you. Braves are hopeful, though, he gets back in the lineup, and then the numbers can start to become inflated for that Atlanta offense. But Zack Short, again, congrats on being next man up, but Brian Snitker updating the status of Austin Riley is day to day. I think they're hopeful he's going to avoid the injured list, but it doesn't sound like he's going to jump right back in the lineup.
Yeah, probably at least miss the rest of this series, and then they'll probably reevaluate and see if maybe an IL stint is needed, because it is just 10 days. So, at some point it makes more sense to get another body up there if you don't think he's going to be back for this weekend, but still we'll have to see as the week goes on. But you hate it for Austin Riley because, again, he's another one of these guys where you felt like he was starting to turn a corner and get things going, and now you got this setback and what's been a slow start to the season, and it just really kind of gives you some bad vibes for Riley right now. But hopefully it is nothing significant. I mean, inflammation, not inflation, is probably the best thing that you could have asked for right now with Austin Riley. So hopefully he's not out long. He can get back out there and, like I said, kind of continue the good swings that we've seen from him here lately and get hot and get going like we know he can.
Yeah, you'd love to see that. And again, Zack Short didn't come over to the Braves, I don't think, imagining that he was going to jump right into his starting third base role for any length of time, but that's exactly what he's getting. And he's made the most of his quick opportunity on Monday, and even checking in for Austin Riley on Sunday's game. As you mentioned, he's been finding his way on base quite a bit here in the early going in his Braves career. When we come back, we will talk a little bit more about the Monday win. We'll also get you ready for Tuesday, Game 2 between the Braves and the Cubs, as Chris Sale and Jamison Taillon will match up at Truist Park. That is coming your way as the Braves postcast continues. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. Baseball season in full swing as we're midway through May, but don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond to your Prize Picks entries. Whether strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less and add your Prize Picks entries today. Download that app and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. That is Locked On MLB in the Prize Picks app. Well, Jake, let's talk about Game 2 of this 3-game series. It comes our way on Tuesday night, a 7:20 first pitch for the Braves and the Cubs. It's going to be Chris Sale on the mound, and I think we really have spent a lot of time this year after wondering, what version of Chris Sale was going to come over, noting that he's healthy for the first time in a while. What does all that mean? Well, it means that Chris Sale-type numbers have been put up thus far for the Braves veteran left-hander. He's 5-1 with a 2.95 ERA. And I've talked about this, and we may have even had this discussion on the postcast not long ago, maybe after Chris Sale's last start. With all due respect to what Reynaldo Lopez has done and what you expect out of Max Fried, there's a very good case to be made that Chris Sale has been the Braves' best starting pitcher over the first 6-7 weeks of the season.
Yeah, you look at just pure dominance. I think Chris Sale has probably been that guy. You look at a whiff rate that's over 30%, a strikeout rate that's over 30%. Meanwhile, a walk rate that's under 5%. He doesn't walk anybody. He's striking out people. That's what you want in a starting pitcher or any type of pitcher. And that's what Chris Sale is giving you. It's just really great to see for the Braves. Again, we've already mentioned Spencer Strider and the fact that, he's out, and that, leaves a huge void in there. But you got somebody like Chris Sale, who's been the top of the rotation guy in the past. He's pitching like one now, and it's just been really dominant stuff for him. So, yeah, you got Max Fried, who's pitching like an ace. Like I said, he's flirting with a no-hitter every time out. Ronaldo Lopez, an ERA sitting at 1. But Chris Sale, with what he's done and how he's done it, I think he's been probably at least the most dominant pitcher for the Braves so far this season.
Yeah, it's just been impressive the way that he's gone about it. And one thing you've touched on a couple of times, and you don't always see for big strikeout pitchers, is a lot of them will deal with a period of time where maybe they're a little bit wilder. Maybe the walks are a bit of a problem for him. But Chris Sale has never really been a big walks type pitcher, but he's racked up a lot of strikeouts, and he's really been able to, dot that fastball where he's wanted to. The sliders looked really good. He's using his changeup. I mean, it's just pure dominance when he goes out there and carving up a lineup. And he seems to be getting a little bit better as well, Jake, as the season has worn along. 9 strikeouts against the Mariners in 5 innings, 10 strikeouts in his last appearance against the Boston Red Sox. I'm sure that didn't hurt his feelings, might have hurt the feelings of his old teammates. But either way, he is seemingly getting maybe a little bit better, a little bit stronger as things go along as well. And I think that is building off of at least getting those 20 starts and 100 innings under his belt last year for Boston, but having much bigger goals and much bigger numbers in mind for what he wants to do for the Atlanta Braves here in his first year with this new team.
Yeah, you talk about the competitive edge that Chris Sale has. And I do think, last year was kind of that year before the year, as he's coming off of, several seasons where he hadn't pitched a lot and still missed some time last year, but got those 100 innings under his belt. And you really thought that, this year, at least we hope that this year, kind of put all that behind him, and still a long way to go. But certainly feels like he kind of shook some of that rust off last season. And now we're starting to see Chris Sale in the version of him that, we all hoped that we could get, and just would like to see it continue. Obviously, that slider has just been such a dominating pitch for him this season, and a pitch that he can just dial up. And it's, high 70s. So coming off 95, 97 from that weird arm angle that he has from the left side, and then he can just drop that slider in where he wants to. Batter's hitting just 159 against it this year with a near 40% whip rate. So just an incredible pitch. Again, the stuff has been there for him. It's just staying healthy. And right now we're getting to see a healthy Chris Sale.
Well, the Braves lineup will be dealing with Jameson Taillon, who has just a 1.13 ERA, not the kind of strikeout stuff of a Chris Sale, but he is 3-0 on the year. That's the pitching matchup for Game 2 of this 3-game series. I did want to throw up in a couple of more lineup notes, since we spent most of the show talking about how great the pitching has been and the fact that, the offense, it wasn't much, but it was timely. But you mentioned there were 10 hits on this day. Matt Olson had 2 of those hits. That's not a small thing, as we've talked about just how difficult it's been for him to find those multi-hit games. This is his first one in nearly a month, and maybe the little signs, Jake, of things starting to go his way. I know he had a very deep and loud out into left field as well in this one. Just some indications maybe that Matt Olson's starting to find himself, and that would certainly go a long way for this Braves offense, particularly if you're without Austin Riley for any length of time.
Yeah, I know I keep saying it, but I'm just not concerned with Matt Olson with what I've seen. Even over the stretch where he hasn't been racking up the hits, he is still hitting the ball extremely hard. And even on this night, he had 2 hits, and his best swing wasn't out. That wind was obviously blowing in pretty hard there from left field, but I mean, he crushed that ball to left center. That's either off the wall or it's gone on most nights. 101 miles per hour, 26-degree launch angle, absolutely crushed that ball. Yep. Unfortunately, just died at the track, and Bellinger able to run it down. So a lot of good swings tonight again. And even the strikeouts, he's got that down. So Matt Olson is, I know the average is around 200, and that's all a lot of fans look at, but just the quality of contact for him is still there. He's going to break out, and he's just going to go bananas at some point, and hopefully this is the beginning of that.
Yeah, this would be another step along the way, perhaps. The home run in New York, I think, was a nice little indicator, and it had to feel great for him to finally have the relief of ending that homerless drought. He'd like to go ahead and maybe dial up a few more of those on a night where maybe it's not quite as windy at Truist Park, and perhaps Tuesday will be that night. Again, Chris Sale, Jameson Taillon, 7:20 p.m. Eastern Time, the first pitch for the Braves and the Cubs in the middle contest of this 3-game series. That's going to bring us to the end of this edition of the Braves Postcast. Once again, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube. Leave us those likes and those comments. Share the show with a friend. We'd really appreciate that. And make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Braves come home from their road trip with a series win under their belt. Disappointing loss on Sunday. They bounce right back on Monday and win the opener of their 3-game series against the Cubs and the opener of a nice week-long stay at Truist Park. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. We will catch you soon. And until next time, everyone, so long.